That's the ditch box.
We are going to call the Novi Board of Education regular meeting to order. Tonight is November 17th. I want to welcome everybody in the audience. I want to welcome our staff who is here with us tonight, and we love having you here and just working alongside of you guys. So if we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can get a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda,
So moved.
Support.
recommended by Mr. Menon, supported by Trustee Roney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. First on our agenda, we have a report to the board. We have our financial audit, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Micah to introduce our auditors.
Perfect, thank you so much. So every year, school districts across Michigan are required to have a financial audit. It's required by law to be completed for the year end. This past year, the fiscal year ended in June 30th, 2022. And we're here with our partners from Plant Moran, and Chris Geck is with us, and he's gonna share an update of our financial report.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. As noted, here to present to you tonight the results of our audit of both your financial statements and your federal programs for the year ended June 30 of 2022. So we did complete that testing, and on your financial statements, happy to report, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of assurance that an auditor can provide. On your federal programs that we tested, this year we tested your special education cluster and also the ESSER programs, which is underneath the Education Stabilization Fund. I'm happy to report tonight we had an unmodified opinion on those programs as well. No control deficiencies, and the district continues to be considered a low-risk auditee from a grants testing compliance standpoint. So overall, that's the opinion on both of the audits for both the financial statements and the federal awards. Next few slides, I'll cover some of the highlights primarily for the general fund of the district. On this first slide, we're presented with the final amended budget for the year ended June 30 of 2022, which projected a use of fund balance of about $1.25 million. The actual results for the year ended June 30 of 2022 was an overall increase in fund balance of about $54,000, so a positive variance there in terms of the change in fund balance of about $1.3 million. If you look at the variance percentage, you have a budget of about $88 million, so pretty close on both the revenue and expenditure side of the equation, below 3% for both expenditures at 2.27%. And below 1% of a variance on your revenues when you compare your final budget to those actual revenues. On the next slide, we're going to focus a little bit more closely just at revenue for the year ended June 30 of 2022. Again, total revenue of just over $88.7 million. And what this slide highlights is the source of the revenue in the general fund. So you can see here the school district receives the majority of its revenue in the general fund from state-funded sources. That's primarily through the foundation allowance, coming in at 58.2% in total for state-funded sources of revenue in the general fund. And you'll notice there your federal revenue at just over $8.1 million at 9.2%. It is important to note that that percentage is up a bit this year in terms of all the pandemic-related funding districts have received. If you compare that graph to last year's percentages, you'd be at about 5.5% federal funding, making up the total amount of federal funds in the general fund compared to total revenue sources. So a bit of an increase due to those one-time pandemic funds that were spent and used in 2022. Moving on to the next slide, we're looking at now the expenditures in the general fund. This is by what's reported as the function code level of reporting. And what's important to note here is if you look at both your instruction and your instructional support, the combination of those two categories would be about 77.3% of your general fund expenditures spent directly in instruction and instructional support. So vast majority of your expenditures in the general fund spent in that area when looked at the function code level of reporting. On the next slide, we're looking at your same total dollar amount of expenditures at just under $88.7 million. But this is what's referred to as the object code view, so how the dollars are incurred within the function codes, which is more of a departmental level view. And what's important to note here is that the district has most of the expenditures in the general fund being incurred in the area of salaries and benefits at just under 85% of total general fund expenditures. Benefits include things such as estate contributions to the state-run retirement program, the NIPSRS program, contributions for retiree both pension and health care, again to the NIPSRS program, and then also your actual health care benefits as well that employees have at the district, payroll taxes, and then obviously salaries and wages included in that number as well. Next slide here is a view of the change in fund balance for each fiscal year from 2014 through 2022. Again, you can see for 2022, the increase to fund balance was about $54,000. The number there for 2023, the reduction, that's based on that original budget that the board adopted in June of 2022 for fiscal year 2023. So there's budget amendments that always happen throughout the year, but that's based on that first original budget, which planned for a use of fund balance in 23 of just over $1.2 million. So that's what's reflected in that portion of the graph. So that last slide was the change in fund balance for each fiscal year. This graph here is a snapshot of what the total fund balance is for each fiscal year end June 30, 2014 through 2022. The total fund balance for the general fund at June 30 of 2022 was just over $15.7 million. Fund balance is often viewed for school districts in Michigan as a percentage of your total general fund expenditures. And so if you look at your total fund balance as a percent of expenditures, you'd be at 17.75% at June 30. And looking just at the unassigned portion, which excludes that fund balance that was held based on the original planned use of fund balance for 2023, that $1.2 million we just discussed, that net amount would be about 15% when you look at just the unassigned fund balance. Comparative to statewide, what the average was for all districts for the year end June 30 of 2021, that's the most recent data available for statewide averages. The statewide average was about 19.3% total fund balance compared to general fund expenditures across all districts in the state of Michigan. If the actual fund balance ends up being based on the original budget, the use of the $1.2 million, you'd be at about 16% remaining fund balance projecting out to 2023, assuming no further budget amendments. As mentioned on the previous slide, the federal revenue in your general fund did increase for fiscal year end 2022, and a lot of it has to do with these non-recurring COVID-related federal programs. So that's what this slide includes. Not all your federal programs, but just those one-time unique COVID-related federal programs. In total, Novi was awarded about $10 million in combination with both the current fiscal year and the prior fiscal year. And you can see here from the graph that most of these programs, the district has utilized these dollars through June 30 of 2022, mainly with funds left with the ESSER 311T, which is the last grant on this slide, about $1.3 million left to spend in 2023, and that can be spent through fiscal 2024. A little bit left with your ESSER 3 program, not the 11T, but the normal ESSER 3. Just about $450,000 left in that program to spend as well. So vast majority of those dollars spent, some more to utilize in fiscal 23 and 24, and then we'll see a sunset on all of those pandemic-related federal programs. Lastly, important to note too, and this is not within the general fund, but the district still has been able to benefit from the voter-approved millages that have supported the sinking fund, all of your bond funded capital project funds. And this year the district did have about 38 million in capital outlay across the sinking fund, all your bond funded capital project funds, which without those funds and having those dollars for those projects, really it would be your general fund that would be responsible for capital improvements, buying new technology, things of that nature. So just important to highlight that fact as well. Any questions on any of the numbers presented tonight?
Not necessarily a question on the numbers,
Yeah.
but just in terms of the COVID-related funds, there are some stipulations around how we can spend those, correct?
Correct.
So those aren't just money that we can use however we want. They have stipulations and requirements.
Yep, the MDE actually is the group that kind of manages what are the allowable uses for those. And the district had to submit a plan and all of those things, so those monies are, kind of earmarked to be expensed for this next year.
Okay, so in other words, you used a word when you said, not earmarked, but, or earmarked, Amanda earmarked.
Yeah, so like.
I heard earmarked even.
Yeah,
though
so
it's
this
not
year we
what you said.
tested all your ESSER programs and then your special education. So part of that testing was making sure those dollars were spent in accordance with both the state requirements, but then also the federal requirements for those programs too. Because to your point, yes, there are limitations in terms of what those dollars can be used for. And part of our testing was making sure that occurred.
Okay, so is those dollars amounts, I'm assuming, are included in the overall general fund? And so you said the money that's not been assigned fund, so those would be already assigned funds, correct?
Are you speaking maybe more on the fund balance when you're talking about the assigned versus the unassigned?
Oh,
or-
oops, yes, it
Yes.
was, sorry, I got the two confused.
No, that's okay. Yeah, the assignment versus the unassigned, so you have a portion of your fund balance at June 30, that's assigned, and the reason that's assigned is because you adopted a budget for fiscal '23, the
Okay.
first original budget that planned to use 1.2 million of fund balance to balance the budget.
Okay.
So that portion of your fund balance is assigned.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I know that Chris and the audit team was able to meet with the finance committee and go in a pretty lengthy, detailed version of this. But Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
Just a quick one, forgive me, I didn't see it, our deck is 250 pages tonight, so. Did your report include a suggestion or a recommendation as it relates to a target for our fund balance? And I ask because I heard you say that 19.3% was the state average,
That's the average, right.
which I would conclude means there's quite a few districts that have exceeded 20% in their fund balance. And recently, I've been educated that the goal really isn't 10 or 12%, it's maybe 20%. So is that included somewhere in here?
Yeah, not specifically in the report. I
Okay.
mean, there's some statewide organizations would, say that 15% is kind of a general target that school districts should try to strive for. And there's, varying, depending on each district situation and cash flow needs, but kind of 15% is a common target that a lot of statewide organizations put out there as a minimum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We asked that question as well, so it was interesting to
Oh,
to
in the
hear.
committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
No, just on that comment, because we were talking about that fund balance,
Yeah.
because that, little red flag for us. And it was like, when you get at 5%, that's when the state is like, ooh. So really, if we're at 10, we only have 5% to work with. So we discussed that maybe we need to relook at that suggestion.
Yeah, another thing to consider from a cash flow perspective, so, as we saw, most of the revenue in the general fund is from state-funded sources. School districts don't get a state aid payment in the month of September, so you do have a pretty big gap during the summer, late summer and into the fall in terms of cash inflows. So having the appropriate amount of fund balance also helps to have cash available to fund outflows, payroll, AP disbursements, to not have to borrow and use a state aid note. So it's important to kind of take that into consideration too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hook?
Yeah, just two things related. One was related to the fund balance, and this is just general information. The fund balance is for districts is not a rainy day fund. It is a liquidity balance. It's like a household income. You have savings in case you have a cash flow issue, and so it's not a rainy day fund, and it is important that districts maintain that, that cushion for expenses if we don't get our state money in time, that we have an outlay, and anyway, so that's one thing. And then the other thing, the board has copies of all this, but, and Mr. Smith mentioned that our packet this week is 250 pages long, but if anyone is interested, there are 3 documents related to the audit, actually 4 if you consider the PowerPoint, but the 3 more formal documents, one is the report to the Board of Education, that's the title to it. And on page 12 starts a very, an informational, wonderful section about school funding in Michigan. And it's just, if you're interested in the kind of odd way that Michigan funds its schools, compared to the, everybody, I think if you're not involved in this, you think that school funding still comes out of all property taxes, and that's not at all how Michigan works. So page 12 of that, of the report to the board has some very good information about school funding and some, I don't know if it's commentary from Plant Moran, but anyway, it's a good section if you're interested. And that, I think it'll be on the school website pretty soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I did notice there's some additional, I'm assuming maybe the finance committee talked about the additional suggestions,
Yeah.
whatever you call it. That's fine, that's fine. So, yeah,
We had kind of an exhaustive
conversation about
Yes,
it?
we did.
Okay.
It's
Not
on-
I mean, it's
Exhausting.
all in the report, so I
exhausting in
appreciate
any
that.
way.
And
Right.
I always appreciate seeing
Really.
suggestions, because I think there's always places that we can improve, so I always kind of look for that page, because there's always things that we can do that can be improvement, and we should constantly be looking to improve, so, thank you.
Well, and Bobby, Devin attended our meeting, so
Oh, good. Yeah.
he's got a couple things to look at and move forward with. It's good,
Great.
it was all good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris,
Thank you,
and
Chris.
thanks
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
to
Chris.
Plant Moran Pressa. I also want to thank the staff here in Novi that assisted you in all the work, all the gathering of the documentation. And I know it's a process and it takes time, and
Yep.
a lot of behind-the-scenes work goes into this audit
Yeah.
each year, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Alrighty, we are going to move on in our agenda to celebrations. So this is an opportunity for the board and our superintendent to talk about some celebratory things that are happening in our district. So I will start with Mr. Marinka, and then we will see if any board members have anything to share.
Yeah, I have a lot that I could celebrate, and it's close to Thanksgiving time, so it's fitting, but I don't think you would necessarily call what we had happen yesterday a celebration, but there is a silver lining, and that is we had staff members, many of whom actually are here tonight, that did an absolutely phenomenal job. I have heard all throughout the day today from parents, from people that we've been talking to, just the way that our staff took care of the kids yesterday amidst a very stressful situation. I think the administrators in the building, everybody that was on site, the police that partnered with us, communications were working very well, and I heard just a lot of positive comments about the way that the teachers and the staff took care of the kids yesterday, and we quite frankly don't thank them enough. So thank you, and thank you all for being here, for your hard work and effort yesterday especially. I also want to give a specific shout out to an individual, because no one would know this, but as we were going through everything, we knew that we had to find a way to make sure that the kids got fed, because obviously that was something that we were trying to figure out. And the building had to be cleared, but Kim Sinclair is our director of food service. And she said, I think I can do this, and she didn't want any of her staff members to go in there to be in harm's way, and everybody was asked to evacuate, so they cleared the dogs cleared the area in the cafeteria, and Kim went in there and cooked for 1,000 kids. And that's an amazing feat, and I just think that probably nobody would know that she did that, but she took that upon herself. And everybody did such an amazing job yesterday, so while it was stressful, there are moments to highlight and people to highlight like that, that just go above and beyond for our kids and our staff. So Want to thank her and celebrate her tonight.
Thank you. Any board celebrations this evening?
Well,
Mrs. Murphy?
every kid made it back from DC alive. And it was probably the best weather we've ever had while I've been on this trip. It was fantastic. And it was a great group of kids. It was a big, I would say that's something to celebrate. And I will say again to that our staff, phenomenal staff that do this trip every year. And staff who volunteered to sleep in rooms with mice. I was not one of them. But
With mice?
Oh.
A mouse.
okay, that was not a mouse. No, there were some issues, and there were a couple nights that there weren't extra rooms. So people were shuffling around and making sure that the kids were all felt comfortable. And so anyways, shout out to the staff and certainly to Meg Barnaskis, who organized it all. It was a really great trip. She didn't manage the weather, I don't think, but she managed everything else with real grace and really represented our district really well in the midst of some difficult, juggling things. It was a great trip.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And kudos to you for all these years of going
Yeah.
and supporting our kids and just really being a part of it. It's a lot to get on a bus and go that far.
I have to say, it's really neat to watch kids that work through their own kind of, it's new. It's the first time that many of them have been kind of away with just their things. And watching them from day one to the last day, there's a lot of growth that happens in that time. And that's what's really cool to see. So anyways, it's definitely something we need to continue in this district to not only teach them a lot about American history, but also, and there were kids that truly were really, really invested in, like, finding out. Our guide said she couldn't believe how well our kids listened. She said, I'm going to brag about you and use you as an example for every group I have from now on. So anyways, it's great.
That's awesome. Any other celebrations from board members? Yes, please.
So I wanted to mention, Saturday, November 5th, 2 weeks ago now, was the Michigan Competing Bands Association State Championship. And Novi's Wildcat Marching Band was one of 10 who qualified for the Flight 1 competition. That was first thing in the morning. We were seated 5th, so the seating comes from, every band is required to be in 2 competitions before state finals. So we were seated 5th, and it is somewhat rare that seating changes, that the results of the competition, the state championship, that rarely changes. Sometimes it does. So the bands are judged in 5 categories: music, visual, percussion, auxiliary, and general effect. I won't go into those. But, so I was a band mom for 6 years, and it was so great. But what is celebratory for Novi is that the bands that generally place higher than Novi literally practice twice as much. So our kids have 1 week of band camp. Lake Orion kids have 3 weeks of band camp. Or Plymouth Canton, Walled Lake, they're always, Rockford, those are generally the the more devoted bands. And Novi kids practice 2 nights a week. Lake Orion, they practice 9 to 9 every Saturday through the fall. It's crazy. And so Novi has always kind of maintained that we're not going to go crazy for band, but it's such a wonderful experience and our kids like it. So we compete kind of at that mid-level, and I think it's great for the kids. So we went in seated 5th. We placed 4th, so we beat Plymouth Canton, which was like, holy mackerel, right?
Yeah, they would never beat them.
And the really special part is the kids won percussion. They placed first in percussion, which is really, really incredible. So shout out to them, all of our students. They're just a fantastic group of kids. Speaking of a fantastic group of kids, just a. But an additional shout out to the parents, the boosters, who raise the money, who help raise the money. And, because it takes a lot of money to get 150 kids and their instruments on the road. So they maintain the semi, they maintain our uniforms, and it's just a ton of work. So it's just I don't know, I was thrilled when I heard it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I thought you were gonna say, shout out to the parents who raised the kids.
Well, that too. Anyway, so thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say just a few words. I want to thank Jason and Betsy and Chris and Latasha for running for school board. I know that it's a difficult road to go through just a political campaign, and the fact that each one of those candidates engaged in or wanted to be engaged in their community is something to celebrate, and we really look forward to welcoming our new trustees, Betsy and Jason, to this board, and celebrating our outgoing ones, but we're not going to talk about that right now because there is future talk about that, so. Thank you. Congratulations. I don't know, love to come up with something really great. So, any other celebrations right now? We'll have time for board communication at the end, so. Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. This evening, we have several items on our consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, regular meeting minutes of November 3rd, work session minutes November 13th, approval of bills, board report September, purchase card report for August 2022, check register report for September 2022, board report from October, purchase card report for September 2022, and check register report for October 2022. And there is approval of one field trip, the Model UN Conference. So if I may get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
Support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. We will move on to an opportunity for comments from the audience. The board respectfully requests that any individual wishing to speak to the board provide their name, their address, any organization they represent, to keep their comments to the allotted time of 3 minutes. We have a timer up there. And refrain from directing comments to individual members of the board, district employees, or members of the audience. So, Mr. Cook is not here to take our green cards this evening, but if anybody would like to speak to the board, if you can have Sheila bring up your green card and we'll call your name to come up. Do we just have one? Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, we have a
another
couple.
one.
Okay, hold on. Any other green cards to be brought up? And then Mrs. Murphy will call you up to the podium.
Okay. I'll call Allison Dolan, and she's standing. I'm already on her way.
I'm not used to all these processes. Hello, I'm Allison Dolan, proud mother of 4 graduates from Novi High School that went all the way through K through 12. I want to first thank all of you for volunteering and spending your time in support of our children. I greatly appreciate that. I am also the president of the Novi Educational Foundation. I kind of thought that this part would be after the next part, so I am here to thank you a little in advance for support of the Novi Educational Foundation's grants for the teachers and allowing us to support our teachers and the amazing ideas that they generate. It's fabulous to read and hear about every year what they come up with and what they want to do for our children. I also want to comment about the 8th grade field trip, because a little known effort that the Novi Education does is that we provide scholarship for students in need to the 8th grade field trip. So if in the future, because I know the current 7th graders will be signing up pretty quickly, if anybody here tonight or listening, and watching at home, if you know of a child who is not attending because of financial reasons, please have them talk to Meg Mernaskis. She is very well aware of what we offer, as no child should be left behind because they can't afford it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dolan.
Okay, next we have just Jason. Jason Michener.
Poor Jason.
Sorry.
Evening board, it's just Jason Mitchner. So I wanted to first extend a thank you to Chris Holman and Latasha Keller for running very competitive races. It was a lot of work, so I hope they're able to get rest. I really enjoyed running with them and getting to meet them. And extend congratulations to Betsy Bodwine for a great race, and I look forward to serving with her and the rest of you very shortly. Tonight, just two quick things. It sounds like you kind of answered one. It sounds like you have plans to address the accounts payable issue that was noted in the audit. That was an amazingly thick packet, by the way. I look forward to getting into more of those details in the future, but sounds like you have a plan for that, so I won't belabor that fact. I just wanted to point out item C in your information and discussion. It probably is coming up for approval next month, so I wanted to put this idea out there. I wondered if the board has any plans to get this information out to the parents in general, so that no one shows up and has an unpleasant experience finding out that they can't attend or volunteer that particular day, and so that our office staff doesn't have to be the first point of contact letting them know about this new policy. But more than that, if there's a way we can meet the needs of our new move-ins, whether they're new to the district, new to the state, sometimes in most cases actually in Novi, new to the country, if there's a way to accommodate the parents of those students and potentially their relatives, as they may not happen to have a state-issued driver's license or ID, if there's a way we could help those individuals and families out so that they can participate as volunteers in their student school. Just a thought to put that out there in consideration, so thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All righty. Those are the last two green cards?
That's it.
Okay. We will move on to donations. This evening, we will start with the Novi Athletic Booster donations. Mr. Mike Bell.
Yeah, so the Novi Athletic Boosters is donating funds to the areas of the district athletic program, including basketball, border cross, cheer, hockey, wrestling, football, lacrosse, track, baseball, golf, pom, soccer, field hockey, swim and dive, and volleyball that totaled $39,345. And we are grateful for that donation, so that's recommended that the board accept that gift with gratitude.
Thank you very much. If I can get a motion? Anyone?
Okay, I'm trying to find the page.
So many
I'm-
pages.
There is, it doesn't,
Yeah.
there's not a
Okay.
recommendation.
Oh, there's not. Well, that's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will move that the Novi Community School District, in the best interest of the students and the athletes and everybody else, that we accept the donation from the Novi Athletic Boosters in the amount totaling $39,345.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Mena. Any questions? Okay, yes?
Well, I just wanted to say, I've had an opportunity to attend many of the athletic booster meetings over the years, and it's just an incredible group of people, and I guess one of the problems that they had years ago was getting folks, figuring out kind of a unique way to get more people involved, and they came up, I remember a parent came up with an idea where they actually dole out money to teams based on participation of those parents for those teams. So that's why you see here, when you look at the dollar amount, it goes to show, which sports have folks participating. And it really is a great organization, and they can certainly use more help, because I personally know, there's a lot of businesses in the Novi area who are probably willing to donate more. It just takes some manpower to get folks out there talking to these folks, but they do a fantastic job, and I can't think of a time where our kids don't have what they need to be able to have everything they need to participate in their particular sports. So we want to really thank them for the great job that they do.
Thank you, Mr. Mena. Do we have any other comments or questions?
Well, I did boosters for years and years, and it's amazing how much money a small amount of individuals can raise, to Willie's point. And it's wonderful, $40,000 to our kids, where the parents would end up paying for that stuff that was needed. So that's just awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roney. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. We have one more donation item on our list. It's the NEF grants and donations. Mr. Meinkel.
Yeah, so as you heard from Ms. Dolan, she came up and described, the NEF has been a partner of this district for a very long time, and they've been such great supporters of our programs. Every year, our teachers have the opportunity to apply for teacher grants. And so while the minutes publicly will be posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, we are not going to read off the specific ones in order to keep it a surprise, because I know that the teachers that have been awarded will be surprised shortly after the Thanksgiving break. So, and I do want to also clarify that these teacher grants were the most that they have received in terms of requests, at least in the time that the current members of the NEF can recall. So, really great participation from our teachers this year. Over $30-some thousand of donations. For a point of clarification, just for the policy perspective, you're approving $12,217 tonight, which is the amounts that are over $1,000 requiring board approval. But there's actually well over $30,000 of teacher grants that are being awarded by the NEF in a couple weeks. So we're excited about that.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarity on that. If I can get a motion for the recommendation, Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education accept the generous donations as presented with appreciation and thanks.
We have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Murphy. Do we have any comments or questions regarding this donation request or approval? Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm the NEF liaison for the board, and I attended the NEF meeting Monday evening. And that group of parents are dedicated and every meeting is like a roundtable discussion on what more can we do and how can we do it. It's always very energizing, and it's just a gratifying experience for me to hear about all the ways that all the suggestions they get from teachers, and really going out of their way to fulfill the requests that they get from our teachers. And I appreciate it from a board perspective, and appreciate it from a parent perspective too. So, thank you.
Are you prepared to give them a little shout out for the return of the Green Gala in person?
Well, I did last time, if you
Every
paid
time,
attention.
every time.
So, it is not that I can, April 15th.
What was
So
that,
it's
Allison?
Tax day, April 15th.
April 15th. It's the 3D, because I said it's back in 3D. It's a 3D Green Gala in person.
Every time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Hood. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please.
I just want to say, what a wide variety of grants for all different, just so many different kids are going to be touched by these. It's amazing. I mean, this will be on the NEF website, I'm assuming, like the grant
Eventually.
eventually. Well, obviously, after we accept them. But I love that parents can look at this and see some of the things that teachers are coming up with for their kids, both from a mental health perspective. They've got things in here about,
They're secret until the teacher.
That's why I said eventually. But if you want to talk about the live Wildcat,
High level, you can talk high level, Mrs.
Isn't
Murphy.
this?
Yeah, but
Oh,
we're
my.
hoping that they're not going to
Not
look
yet.
at
Oh,
it
they're
because
not
they
looking
haven't been awarded.
Oh, I'm
You missed
so
that last
sorry.
meeting.
There's not a live Wildcat, just to be clear.
Well, mental health is really general. You're okay, Bobby.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Anyways, just seeing the vast array of what teachers are looking to address with our students is it's just amazing. And the truth is that I believe originally when because what have I been on the board, 16 years? There was a lull in there where teachers were reluctant to apply for things. And I loved seeing that there's obviously some great enthusiasm now around this and seeing what happens when you think outside the box. Because I know some of the grants that were granted, like in one school, there was it was a trial thing, and then the district said, man, this is really working, and this is something that, maybe we can fund across to all the places. So thanks to the teachers that applied for the grants and for, thinking outside the box about different ways to address, I don't want to say that we have a lot of deficits in our district, but just the teachers are down in the trenches. They see the things that maybe are happening at a level that, boy, maybe this is something we could address a little differently, or maybe this would touch this student. So anyways, kudos to our staff for coming up with these, and I'm excited. I want to go back to school for some of these things.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, before we take a vote, I wanted to encourage the NEF to, if you feel so obliged to, in pre-COVID pandemic years, invite the board to come to the surprise reveal. Not all of us come, but in the past, who could have attended. And it's always great to get into the buildings and to see the kids just being so excited for their teachers when they're awarded such a special award. So we would love to attend if able. And to the teachers who applied for grants, it's like a holiday present. Don't peek, because then you just ruin it for yourself. It's no fun if you know it's coming. Just let it happen. So all of that. I think if we're ready for a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I hope that's not what I'm remembered for.
But there's 16 years, you won't be remembered for
Okay.
that.
No, you'll be remembered for the fact that you rode on a bus to
Right,
DC how many times?
yes, exactly. All right, we are gonna move on to our action items. We have 3 this evening. We will first start with our personnel report. Mr. Meinko.
I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Carino to present our personnel report this evening.
Thank you very much. We have 2 new hires that we would like to bring forth to you tonight, who are both here today. We have Melanie Doyle, who is a special education para, who will be at Novi Meadows 5, and Melissa Kruger, who will be at Village Oaks, a special ed para as well. We have a retirement and a resignation. So Lara Eldon has resigned from the middle school as a literacy specialist. And I'm very sad to report that Kathy Donovan will be retiring effective December 27th. I asked her if I didn't mention it tonight, would it count? And she still insisted it would be. But I am grateful to her in human resources. She has been such a wealth of knowledge during my transition to this position, and so we are grateful for her service over many, many years in Novi. So that is our personnel report.
Thank you, Dr. Carino. If I may get a motion for the recommendation? Mrs. Roney?
That the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopt the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Roney and supported by Mr. Mena. Any questions or comments this evening? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Did you say they're here?
Introduce
We
her.
are here, so I would like to call up Melanie Doyle first. We officially welcome you to Novi.
Speech.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've been working with children for many, many years, 10 plus years actually, 6 years with special education. And I'm very excited, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to start working in Novi Community Schools.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming.
And Melissa Kruger.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I am in my 8th year, actually, with Novi Community Schools. I did 8 years as a noon aide at Village Oaks, and I started last year supporting the special ed department. So I'm very excited to officially be a part of the special ed department.
Fantastic.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, we will move on to our second action item, which is the HS High School door access management. It's not actually high school now that I'm reading it. It's the HS door access management system, maintenance, transportation, and ESB. Mr. Mesa.
Yep, so on Thursday, July 27th, the Novi Schools Board of Education was awarded the district-wide card access system. This is an ongoing award recommendation for the work to be done at the maintenance, ESB, and transportation. And again, for those that have maybe not had the opportunity to hear, this card access system will create a security and safety process that will essentially move us to the elimination of keys. So hard keys will be eliminated and then allow for a lot more control on the site in terms of who can access and when they're accessing. And so this is here for your approval tonight.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion for the recommendation? Sure. Mrs. Murphy?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the amended contract incorporating the added scope of educational services, building, transportation, maintenance, and Meadows Soccer Pavilion as presented.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy, supported by Mrs. Roney. Do we have any specific questions? Mr. Mena?
Well, I'd like to thank Mr. Dragoo and his team. I think when we had met, we had talked about some concerns that we had with some of the equipment we were looking at, and they were able to go back to the vendors and address and make those adjustments. So it's not always the easy thing to do, but for some reason they were able to pull it off, and I thank them for that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
The-
Mrs. Roney?
The only question I had, is this just the outdoors or is it all doors in here? In them?
All,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So is that like the first? I know Roar is done, but then are you guys like the first ones to do this?
Well, we're trying to build small, but as you know, the high school's gonna be done, are starting to be done soon, and so those processes are gonna be coming relatively quickly, so we're trying to start with smaller buildings. One thing that I will mention, just because it was a part of the discussion at the last meeting, what they found was some of the thumb push lockdown systems were easily tripped, and so they're gonna be able to use some of those that were already ordered on, say, this building, where kids aren't gonna have as easy access. That way, they're gonna be moving to the buildings with a thumb turn system, because it'll be a little bit easier to to prevent a false, trigger of the door, so.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
First, I want to just thank everybody that was involved. I think Willie that mentioned Mike and the team and Justin and the work that those guys did. I think we had Justin back up here at least 3 or 4 times to answer more questions, so, he did a great job. Bill and the whole team did, and I was just gonna suggest, I don't know if it's possible or if it would be a redundancy, but if we could capture in a summary format, the different projects, maybe bullet point them with the dollar amount, I think it would be cool and helpful for us to be able to communicate to the community that we're spending, X millions of dollars for safety. I know that's been a concern, especially in light of what we went through this week. I just want to remind the parents that I really don't think you could find a school district in Michigan that's invested more money than we have or put as many things in place. And that doesn't even count the dollars that we've spent hardening the entrances. It's, and I see our tech partners nodding their heads, but it's just, we've done a lot, and I don't think, what's the word, boast about it. So I just think we should summarize that and make sure everybody knows what we've done.
Great.
Yeah.
Great idea. Thank you. Any
We should
other-
boast about it.
Mhm.
We should. Yes.
Any more questions or comments? Okay. We are ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Can I just make a
Yes.
quick comment?
Yes?
I think it's hard. I get the boasting about it, but the fact that we even have to do it, I just want to say that. It sucks.
I agree.
That's what you'll be remembered for.
I got-
You're just making a lot of like, a whole list
No,
tonight.
it does. I mean, I don't know what a better word. It stinks. That's the way that's what we have to spend money on because of where we're at today. Makes me very sad.
Thank you. We'll move on to our third action item, which is Novi Meadows, the IT infrastructure change order. Mr. Micah.
So there was a planned change order for the new Novi Meadows building, which is well underway, and I might add is ahead of schedule. So for all of you, that's a good thing. It's going really well. It's going to be an amazing space. I know we're all anxiously awaiting that completion, but one of the items that was left out of the original design documents was an IT infrastructure design. The final set of design documents were issued and include those missing drawings for that particular portion of the project, which totals $162,907.99. Will be funded from the previously board-approved Meadows contingency funds, and that is there for your approval this evening.
Thank you. If I can get a motion for the recommendation, please. Mrs.
I will
Murphy?
move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the attached summary of costs totaling $162,907.99 to be funded out of the previously approved Meadows contingency funds.
Do we have support?
I'll support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Smith. Do we have any questions or comments around this? We have Kevin here from Aunt Moran and our IT department? No? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, guys. We will move on to information and discussion. We have 3 items tonight on here. We will start with the telecommunications infrastructure phone system upgrade.
In 2019, the community passed a bond, and there was an allocation in that bond for the replacement of the telecommunications infrastructure. Here tonight to talk about that is our technology coordinator, Mr. Anthony Lecrecchio.
Good evening.
Hi. Welcome.
Good to see everyone. So tonight, we're just coming up for just discussion, just go over a refresh of the current phone system. And we've got one of the main issues that the controllers are at end of life. So along with that is going to be replacing the different hardware, be able to utilize the current phones, so the current Cisco phones. So that'll be the same throughout the district, other than at the new Meadows building, brand new, need phones there. So that's, we're gonna be purchasing that. So I believe you have the documentation.
$251,703.29 is the total project cost for the system upgrade.
What questions do you have for me?
Does anybody have any questions? Mrs. Murphy?
Well, I'm just curious. I'm sorry I didn't send these in advance, but we've had some phone outages. Is that because of this issue?
The most recent was just due to a line being cut. So that was one of the main reasons.
Okay,
So-
well, that's a problem too.
Yeah.
But I just wondered, because I know that there are times that when we have outages and stuff like that, and I didn't know how much of that might have been, I don't know that much about telecommunication infrastructure. But I just know that a lot of times we get those emails, and you guys get them too, that say, hey,
Right.
incoming phones are out, or outgoing phones aren't working, or whatever.
Yeah, this will definitely remedy the situation of going over to Oakland schools. So versus being on the outdated copper lines at T1, everything will be routed through the one network, the fiber.
Okay.
And then also updating the controllers, so the controllers are like the switches, those are end of life, so.
Okay.
And the one nice thing is that this will bring a net savings monthly of $1,000 to the district.
Oh,
So transferring that service.
We were waiting for you to say.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Mrs. Roby?
I just have one
please?
question.
My apologies.
So the system that we're going with, what's the end of life on that? Is it 5 years, 7 years?
We're at 5 years?
We budget about 7 years on the controllers.
Okay, and then we'll just upgrade those again?
Yeah, well, then we've got our licensing that goes to 2025, and it's a cooperative bid between Wayne Risa and Oakland County. So since we're going in halfway through the 5-year cycle, we'll have to purchase another 2.5 years for it, so it's prorated. So that's the one item that'll come up in 2025 is the licensing.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Certainly, if there's any further questions, you can send them over to Mr. Micah, and he will get them to the team.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anthony.
We appreciate you. Okay, we will move on to the bid package number 12, Novi Storage Addition to the Maintenance Campus.
Yeah, so on Tuesday, October 25th at 1 PM and Wednesday, November 2nd at 1 PM, sealed bids were received and publicly opened for the addition to our maintenance facility, storage facility. This is a result of the, as we know that we talked about this during the process with the land swap, that we had a storage facility at the Bosco property. And so we had to, basically recoup that storage here on our site. So if you can imagine where our maintenance building is, it's actually, this add-on is gonna be coming kind of closer to Taft Road. And that facility, project is roughly, the bids came in around $1.1 million, $1,134,769. I believe Bill McCarthy is here and, Kevin Donnelly, if you have any questions about the projects, or gentlemen, if you have any other things to add.
Well, good evening. So I'm filling in for Justin tonight. Hopefully I do a good job. So we did get bids. Well, we got a good turnout of bids. It came in slightly over what we anticipated the budget for the project. And as Mr. Minka mentioned, it's really to provide space for the materials, equipment that's going to be displaced from the sale of the property. It's a masonry building. Pretty straightforward. I don't know how to get this up on the screen. We've got some rendering, or just an elevation.
It's just an elevation.
So it's nothing ostentatious. So it's a pretty utilitarian building, and we did get good bid coverage. That was one of the key things that we were looking for. We got a little more civil work that we have to do to place the building where we are, and that's really the only place we could put it. We gotta get into the retention pond, do some cleaning out of the retention, so there's a fair amount of work that that needs to take place. So with that, though, we have good group of contractors that we're pleased to present to you for this award recommendation. We would anticipate, we're gonna work with them on the permitting and trying to get started. We were trying to avoid some winter conditions. We're just gonna work with the contractors. Our goal is, get it ready completed for June, because when the transfer of moving the stuff into the building. So we're looking forward to get started, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
Mrs. Murphy and then Mr. Meno?
Well, I just have a really quick one that might be more for you, Mr. Minka. The timing-wise, are we gonna have it in time, or are we on a time constraint in terms of getting our equipment out of the other building?
Yeah, we need to try and get that out. They're supposed to be having access to that property July 1. We have had some preliminary conversations about what we could do in a slight extension if we ran into that, but
Okay.
our goal is to try and get the project completed. It's not, as you take a look at it, it's not very complicated, right? But it is the complication is actually not what you see there. It's in the earthwork, because there's a retention pond there. And so we have to work with Eagle, which is formerly the DEQ, and we have to make sure that everything is handled properly there. And so there's some extensive groundwork to be done on that. But assuming that we can kind of move through that phase of it, the hope is that we can get it constructed in relatively short order. So we're gonna monitor that closely, and then if we see that it's running long, then we may talk with the city about, what alternatives we could come up with for a slight extension if we needed it.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Meno?
No, it was just more of a comment. I would imagine for that group, that having the storage facility on location now, where it probably should have been put in the first place, it's gonna be so much more convenient for them.
Absolutely, yeah, they're very excited about that.
That's great. Mr. Smith?
Over where the buildings are now, there's a little bit of extra land, or I don't know what you call it, extra land, unused land, where we've been storing little flatbed trailers. You know what I'm talking about? Will this new site have room for that?
It's actually gonna be put to the east of the existing building that faces Taft Road, and you see the little bit of the retention pond.
Right.
So we're gonna fill it in, and there's gonna be it's gonna be facing, the buildings will face each other. So there will not be any space behind the building per se.
You know what I'm talking about, Kevin?
You're not, yeah, dude, you're not losing any footprint.
Yep.
It's going up.
No, I'm concerned specifically about the trailers. Like, we've got 5 trailers that historically have been used for floats. We went through COVID and we kind of nixed the parade and we nixed the floats. And then a very energetic young man decided to make a float for homecoming. Or, you know, and I think that was well received, so I'm just wondering if we're gonna have room for these 4 or 5 flatbed trailers at the new facility.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, or let me revisit it with Mike.
We'll coordinate with Mike.
Right, it would probably
Okay.
be a question for our team, you know, our administrative team,
Oh,
at
okay.
Mike Dragoo, then it would be, I think they're responsible for getting it built, how
And
it gets
this
used
was this was the
right?
spot that was selected because it was very advantageous for the
Maybe it's a
service.
capital projects then.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, thanks. Thank you.
We'll follow up with that, Mr. Smith. Mr. Meinka and Kevin can get the answer to that question for you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? Certainly, if you have any, this will come back to the board for approval at our next board meeting. And we appreciate both of you being here this evening and giving us the information and showing us this beautiful drawing, this fancy building. But, fancy but necessary.
Necessary.
Okay, thank you. We are gonna move on to the final agenda item on information and discussion, and that is visitor policy.
Thank you. So we talked quite a few times about this particular topic, and so what basically this stemmed from was we have a program called Raptor. It's a safety program. It's a safety software to make sure that the people that come into our buildings as visitors or volunteers, you know, are not, you know, criminals or, you know, have shown up on the sex offender registry and those types of things. There were some legislative changes relative to that, and so we worked with our attorneys to try and help craft some language. Dr. Carino did a really nice job working with them and trying to also encompass a lot of the conversation at this board table and requests that were made. And so this policy is kind of our latest rendition, and this was discussed, I'm sure Mr. Smith will reference at governance and policy, and is there for your consideration, and we would hope to be able to approve this at our next board meeting so that we could start to train the office staff and then begin to implement our Raptor system.
Thank you, Mr. Meinka. Do any board members have any specific questions that we can discuss or get answered this evening? Mrs. Roney?
Has parents sign up to go on field trips and stuff like that? I assume this policy will be attached to something so they know, you know, that when they come into the building to go on a trip to Cranbrook, they're gonna have to do this before they can go.
Yeah, so actually, oftentimes when somebody is gonna be a chaperone on a field trip, they're gonna be actually going through the iChat process, and the
Okay.
iChat process is a slightly different process, but they do a background check on anybody that would be chaperoning, for example, and so they would have that information long before they would show up. So just to clear up any confusion, this isn't like somebody's gonna show up to volunteer or go on a field trip and then find out that, you know, there's information that wasn't disclosed. There's obviously ways that we can work with our community, but, you know, to the comment that was made by Mr. Mishner about, you know, people coming in, we can work with our community members on that. This is really for visitors who come to the building during the day, and it provides an ongoing check. So if you say have a contractor who might be there to work on a boiler or something like that, we know if we're allowing somebody to come into our building, we're not gonna put them through an iChat process, but we wanna make sure that we're not putting somebody in front of, potentially around the staff or students that could be a danger.
Right.
Can you share with the public what the iChat process is, what that stands for?
Certainly, so I don't know, Dr. Carino, if you wanna talk a little bit about the iChat process, cause I know you've been working pretty closely on that.
Yeah, so ICHAT stands for Internet Criminal History Access Tool, and so it's something that when we have volunteers in the building, we run through And so it gives us a 1 point annually per year check. The Raptor system will be every time that a visitor or volunteer comes into the building, and so it gives us a more frequent, timely check. And so they are slightly different processes, but the iChat is a little bit more thorough. And so people going on field trips and that sort of a thing that we know are coming in advance would go through that process.
And that is currently moved from paper
To
to
online.
online, and the response to that you feel like is pretty equal. Most people have kind of gotten on board and
Oh, yeah.
done their
Yeah, we have
online.
over 1,000 volunteers that we've already processed through the iChat.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments? I mean, certainly anything that comes up after you read through this and think about this, you can forward to Mr. Micah, and I would CC Dr. Carino on that, since she's working closely regarding safety and technology, and make sure that we get those questions answered before this comes back for a vote at our next board meeting. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our committee reports. We have 4 committee reports. I know that Mr. Cook is not here, but we'll first start with governance and policy. So we'll turn this over to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, President Ruskin. The Governance Policy Committee met a week ago Monday at 3:30 PM, and we had a relatively short meeting, mainly because we had approved the prior week that we were shifting firms, and we've hired Troon to update our manual as it relates to most of our policies and administrative regulations or guidelines. We also spent some time going through the visitor policy as is presented in the materials that we made public for tonight. Dr. Carino was present. Superintendent Micah went through really what the intent of that is. I was ignorant and thought that the Raptor program was new, and it is not. It's a part of the existing system that we've had for years. We've just never utilized it. So I compliment the current team and Ben, and Laura, your work in saying, hey, we've got this tool, we're not utilizing it. If indeed we want to put children's safety first and foremost, then why aren't we using every tool at our discretion that we've already invested in? So I think that's great. The intent is not to prohibit anyone that wants to volunteer or be around our kids. It's quite simply, and I think everybody knows in this day and age, to keep our kids as safe as possible using whatever means necessary. And then we spent the rest of our time kind of walking through the new 5th and 6th grade building, and we were escorted by Justin and Carolyn from McCarthy Smith, and it was very, very impressive. I know the general public isn't allowed just to show up there, on a whim and walk through that particular development, but gosh, that's going to be quite a building when it's all said and done. So that was our meeting. Did I miss anything? Will?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was just gonna say, having an opportunity to walk through it, it's so much larger than meets the eye.
The pictures
massive.
show.
I mean, it's,
I mean, it already looks ginormous.
Wait till you stand in it.
That's right, you were- yeah.
it's
What was this
quite
recommended?
quite a building. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be a huge difference from what they were dealing with before having the 2 grades separated. It's just gonna be a great fantastic building for kids.
Is there a part still that has to go on the back that
Yeah,
It's in
so-
process.
not frame worked out yet?
So next summer, they'll break ground on the back part, the gymnasiums being the orientation shifting, and then we have band and orchestra rooms that are being added there, and then a new cafeteria. So the hard part for everyone here is gonna be this next year, as we're trying to have one group in the new building when it's complete for next year, and then also finding makeshift cafeteria space and things like that. So there's gonna be some growing pains next year for sure. But the year following, then the new cafeteria and the gymnasium and some of those wings will be completed, and then everybody will be able to move in together.
They're all shaking their head.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
For
a
sure.
wonderful segue into the capital projects committee
Yeah,
report.
well, I'm assuming that probably was the capital projects committee report because Paul's not here and I'm guessing policy didn't
Oh,
go for a
Oh.
tour, right?
oh,
perfect.
gotcha, I didn't,
We
was
started, and Willie was with us.
Yeah.
Ben was with us. We walked all the way through the new development and went up to the second floor and then walked back down and went into the existing fifth and sixth grade house and, ran into a teacher that was there burning the midnight oil and walked through the far end of what is now the fifth grade, the sixth grade house, and then came out the side door and made it back. So it's enormous.
Yeah, so one of the conversations at the Capital Projects Committee of note was, as we were touring that site, we're gonna be, and we talked about this, we're gonna start going through a master planning process for the Capital Projects Committee, as well as the current bond, right? And so we have some major projects to consider, and that is, number one, you know, the Roar Center and the work that's being done there, as well as the high school. There's a phase 3 at the high school, there's an activity center on that site. And then we also have the sixth grade house, so as we think about what, you know, that facility could become, or what we would, how we would best use it to serve the needs and programming needs for our kids and students and community, that's gonna be part of this master planning process. So we're gonna be doing a lot of listening tours, talking with a lot of stakeholders, different groups, staff and students and parents and everybody in the community to kind of think about what the needs are, and then we'll be developing, hopefully, a finalized master plan by June so that we can prepare for going out to bid for our projects in the following summer, this next fall. So
Great,
that's kind of the goal.
thanks. Lots of great things happening in the district for our kids and for our teachers and just providing amazing, exceptional learning spaces. So it's exciting times. We will move on to the DEI committee. Mrs. Murphy, as our chair.
so we met this morning at 7:30 a.m. And so, yes, seeing some of you, starting the day and ending the day with you all. But we did have Sarah David came to our committee meeting this morning. Thank you, Mrs. David, for coming and giving a little overview of kind of the district DEI work that's being done and has been being done for about, I think we talked about the past 12 years, with some initial cohorts going through a program that U of M was a part of. And there were a couple cohorts that went through that, and then just some different things that have gone through an impact and other things. But this particular committee, you know, they've set some goals of having a representative from each building. They don't quite have that yet. We're really hopeful that that will occur before the end of the year, because each building is kind of doing some different things, but this is an opportunity for them to kind of come together and kind of talk about what they're doing at the different buildings, and then hopefully creating some kind of comprehensive, more comprehensive plan about what happens at the elementary level and that kind of thing. We talked as a committee also about the work. One of the big things that they did was the district calendar, which Mr. Meinke showed us that they thought a tangible way to kind of represent the diversity in our district was to really create a calendar that has on it all the different various holidays and special months and all those kinds of things that different groups celebrate, even for teachers, like to have something like that, so that they know if a kid, you know, let's say a child is Muslim, that like they know when they're fasting, because let's face it, they might be a little hangry, that, you know, or whatever, or not focused, or things like that. So there's some advantages for teachers actually having that information, but it also, I think, shows, you know, the students that we care about what's going on, like kind of big picture for them. So there are many, I know Mrs. Holly's been really working hard on that calendar, and it's very comprehensive, and a lot of them you can click on them and it pops up like what that holiday is for, which, you know, there are a lot I didn't recognize the names of on there. So it's something that's on our district website now, and it is live, so people can check that out. It's still a work in progress. There's still a few little things to fill in, but yeah, it's really a fantastic tool to show like the diversity in this district, and you know, gives students, and the students were involved in it too, some of the high school students, more involved in helping to create it, which is, student voice, which is another thing that we've been, pushing. So that was a really positive outcome from a tangible thing that the district, or that the committee has done. One of the next steps that we talked about at our meeting is just defining what those terms mean for Novi Community School District, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and what those mean to this district. And so that was one of the things that we kind of said, boy, it would be great if that group could engage, whether it's students or stakeholders, and really come up with some defining terms so that we are all across the district on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. What are we talking about when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion? I think there's a lot of confusion around those terms sometimes. People interpret it differently. So I think that was a really good next step for that committee, and just there's still opportunity at some of the school buildings to be a part of that, and I would certainly encourage any teacher or staff that wants to be a part of that committee to reach out to, I don't want to say Sarah David, because it sounds like they're sharing the responsibility of that, but maybe Mr. Giarmini would be the person to reach out to if they have an interest in, I just threw you under the bus. If they have an interest in serving on that, so. That was our meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Murphy, and thanks for leading the meeting. It was a great meeting. It was great to have Sarah there, kind of giving a historical perspective on what this teacher group has been doing, and it's really a tiny, tiny group of representatives, really, when you look at the big picture of staff that are actually working here in Novi Community School District, and it was great to have some administrative team in there to, they could hear, the fragment of it, that this, district team is working here, and the board is trying to have an understanding of what's actually happening and what can they do to help lead us so that we can all kind of come together and work together and try and work towards our MyKIP goal, but really to have a cultural shift here in the Novi Community School District. So it was really great to actually just have everybody in the room and have an open conversation and really get a handle on a more comprehensive idea instead of little silos working around the district, but really not working together. So I thought it was a really good meeting and lots more work to be done, so.
And
Thank you.
really good information too about the MyKIP, that they felt like that was a good step in the right direction. So we'll probably be hearing more about that, I imagine.
Next, we have the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee.
We haven't had enough finance talk, Mrs. Hood.
No, I've got 6 pages of notes that I'm gonna no.
Go for it.
So what we did at the Finance Committee, which was 5 o'clock this evening, and I was disappointed there was no one in our audience. We went through the documents that Plant Moran presented this evening, our updated, well, they have a window of updated budget and the audit. So we went through all of their reports, pages and pages and pages. And Plant Moran always does a nice job for us. They talk at our level so we can understand the points that are important that we need to look at, and the unqualified opinion?
Unmodified.
Unmodified.
Thank you. Unqualified. Anyway, so that's what we went through, and we really didn't discuss anything else.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was plenty. It was,
a lot.
200 plus pages, so. Alrighty, let's move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Minkoff.
So I have an exciting thing to share with you as a board. At our last meeting, we heard about the tragedy at Oxford and some things that communities can do to kind of support them. And so what I'm passing out to you right here is something that's being called as Light Up Oxford with Love. And what you'll notice in here is that you have a bag and you have a tea light here and you have some instructions. And so I asked, and this is kind of another shout out, but Sheila Holly does probably not get enough credit for the work that she does in this district. And so I said, hey, there's this little project, we'd like to send all of the kids home with these things to show unity with Oxford in the anniversary of the terrible tragedy that happened there. And so the idea is, we basically have a little bag with a tea light, and everybody on November 30th, the kids are gonna come home with these, and the hope is that our community will have a lot of these lights shining, in remembrance of the students that were lost. But Sheila literally, this was like Santa's workshop in here today. I mean, we had people and she coordinated the whole thing. We had boxes. I don't know if there's even some pictures that maybe we took some pictures today. It was a really touching thing because this is a great event for our district to support and just to show unity with Oxford. But in addition to that, it was great to see people like Sheila and our entire staff here in this building, and then even some of our staff from across the district were coming in to stuff the bags. So these are going home on Monday. They're gonna be distributed and go home with kids on Monday. And so November 30th at 7 PM, hopefully they'll be ready to go and can show their solidarity with the Oxford community. So here's, looks like a couple quick slides. So we had people in here all day stuffing bags. And Sheila coordinated all of this, so she deserves a lot of credit for the work that she does. People from all over, our district and the staff to really kind of come together and make this a special thing. So sometimes, a little ask of, hey, maybe we could just stuff 4,500 of these things. It takes an army, so it was really great to see everybody today working so hard, so we appreciate that.
And just for some clarity on that, each family is gonna get them, so that you don't
Each
receive
family is
email
gonna
that
get
says
them.
my child did
Yeah,
this.
and so it's gonna go home with the oldest sibling for kids that have other kids in the district, so or other brothers and sisters in the district. Last evening, Trustee Roney and I had the opportunity to attend a joint superintendents and school boards for Open County meeting, and it was really kind of neat because we got a chance to hear from Dr. Amanda Zarb, who is somebody who worked here in Novi for a very long time. And it was just really neat to see her kind of leading this group discussion around the importance of mental health. There is a lot of information that we gathered, and I know that Dr. Carino's doing a lot in this particular space. We're sending teams to a program called Prepare, which is really about preventative mental health, particularly in the light of this umbrella of school safety. And there's a lot of things that we're doing with that to try and coordinate a lot of our mental health efforts. I want to be clear that we have a lot of mental health support in our district that has been a part of the vision for this district for a long time, much longer than, I've been here. But I will say, we're trying to work to kind of coordinate it all so that we can make sure resources are directed appropriately. And so it was great to hear some very tangible things that Oakland County's doing and how we can kind of partner with the experts in that space. Also, we had coffee with the superintendent this morning. This is typically an event that has about 5 people that just want to have coffee with me and talk about various things. This morning, we had 100 people. And I don't know if we should attribute it to the events of the past few weeks or because Detective Warren were there, or if it was because we had really good scones. I'm not sure, but the bottom line is we had a lot of people. And I challenged the group. I said, the next time our topic of discussion, which of course this morning was school safety, but I said the next time our discussion is on literacy curriculum, I hope that all of you will come back. And so we'll see if we get the same number of turnout for those events. But it was really great. It's an opportunity for me to talk directly to families. Sometimes, it's difficult for me to engage with nearly 7,000 students we have and every one of their families, but it's an opportunity for people and when they take advantage. I want to thank Dr. Carino for coming as well. She's just been such a tremendous breath of fresh air in this space of school safety and trying to really coordinate a lot of the systems behind that. And she did a great job speaking to the families as well today. Tomorrow I have the opportunity to have my second superintendent advisory council with students. And I'm doing that tomorrow at the middle school, and then I'll be doing the high school when we get back from Thanksgiving. And just as a reminder for everyone, we have Monday and Tuesday next week. It's a short week, and this is the longest period, the longest stretch. Our teachers have done amazing, our staff has done amazing, but everybody is definitely ready for the break. So much deserved and well-needed break coming for kind of an extended Thanksgiving starting Wednesday next week. So thank you all for your support and through all the recent events, and it's a great community, great district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meinka. We are gonna move on to administrative reports, and we'll start with Dr. Carino.
Thank you. I just really want to commend the Meadow staff, many of whom are here tonight. I was on site yesterday, and just the way that they cared for their students really was amazing. John and Lisa did an incredible job of making sure that staff were informed, remained calm as well. And just a special thank you to Detective Julie Warren and John Zabik, who were there, along with the Novi PD, really making sure that the building was safe for our kids to return. We have a tentative agreement with the NESPA bargaining unit, so we will be bringing that forward to you for your review at our next meeting in December. And I just really want to say thank you to all the staff. We are wrapping up parent-teacher conferences, and so those are many long days that they prepare to share student successes and struggles, and how we are going to wrap around and support each child. And so I just wanted to really thank them for their time and effort in preparing for those, and our community for attending and participating and partnering with us, and just wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Dr. Carino. Mr. Giarmini.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge our special education department, Novi Adult Transition Center, and our CPAC group last weekend held their winter woodland event. I don't know why I can't say that. Everyone's talking about it. At the Rohr Center, they did pictures with Santa. The therapy dogs raced around the building. The students were selling necklaces, wreaths, and other items that they made. It was really just a huge success, so I just want to acknowledge that. I understand that at the last board meeting, when I was not here, a joke was made at my expense about attending a conference about virtual schools in person. A point of clarification, it was about virtual and hybrid learning, so in person does make sense. But I was at a conference in Dallas hosted by a group called the Learning Accelerator. It's a group that our Novi Virtual School is working with, really thinking about action steps that they can take to improve the programming. And so I was there with Tammy Raffle, our student success coach in Novi Virtual, and Emily Polanski, our Novi Virtual principal, who is here this evening. Really great opportunity to learn and to collaborate and really support our work. So that was a good opportunity, and I'm glad that I was able to be there in person, but sorry I missed you all. I did watch. Our last district-provided professional development day was on November 8th. It was very successful. We did continue our work in our MyKit plan, our Understanding by Design curriculum work, our Advantage Math Recovery training, and our next district-provided professional development day is not until February 21st, so a little reprieve for the planning team who works on that. My thanks to them as well. And this past Monday, actually Dr. Carino and I, along with Jennifer Thurbratt, our career development facilitator, attended the Professional Construction Trades Apprenticeship Program in Howell that was hosted by the Operating Engineers 224. We got to learn more about the construction trades, opportunities that exist there for careers, as well as the pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs that are available. And I think it's very helpful learning for us as we think about potential programming for our students here in Novi. So it was a good experience.
Awesome. You haven't been very busy, I don't know, maybe you can add a few more things to the agenda. All righty, we will move on to board communication. I know we did some celebrations, and now if you have anything else to share, Mr. Smith.
I didn't know if I'd say anything, but with your introduction, Mike, I want to recognize Tammy Raffle, and I know Emily's in the audience. I don't spend as much time as I'd like over in the Rohr Center, and I've not paid as much attention as I'd like to the work that the virtual school's doing. It was brought to my attention today by one of our soon-to-be retired teachers, Lisa Rice, that the virtual school has undertaken a new initiative to recognize students. And I had the opportunity to talk to Principal Polanski about some of the work that they're doing there and some of the kids. And I will share, Emily, you probably couldn't tell from the look on my face, but the little bit that you shared even earlier this evening touched me with regards to the one student and their experience. And I will confess that I don't think about all of the reasons why a student in our district may choose to attend or may be required to attend the virtual school, but that does not mean that that life is any less important than my son who goes to the high school every day. I just think it's awesome, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Emily, but I would love it if at some point you did feel comfortable, when appropriate, to give us all an update on the fantastic work that you and your staff are doing and that Tammy's undertaking with this new initiative, and maybe share a couple of stories about the lives that we're impacting that aren't as visible to the naked eye, if you will. So congratulations, Emily, and I know Tammy's not here, but and I think Lisa knows how I feel about her. So, on a much lighter note, I know a couple of kids that want to start a fishing club. So I'll circle back with whoever I need to about that. We have different clubs, right, Willie? So
Don Wachowski's your guy.
Don would be.
There is a process.
There, yeah, we're not the only, we would not be the only school to have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they usually start as an interest group, so you would meet with the athletic department, I think there's a
Okay, so
process
start
for
with
that.
Don. Okay, perfect. So if any parents listening wanna fish, stay tuned, baby.
It's not a group for parents, it's a group for the kids.
We're gonna need parents' involvement.
We don't
We're gonna give those athletic boosters a run for their money. Lures aren't free.
Oh,
That's it.
okay. Any other board? Mr. Meno.
Yeah, I also attended the band competition at Ford Field, so I think the synopsis that Trustee Hood gave was an excellent one. I also want to reiterate, one of the things I always appreciate about the band here in Novi is they really get the whole school life balance. The amount, it is my understanding that the amount of time the kids put in for band at schools like Plymouth, maybe even Wall Lake, I'm not sure if we brought that one up also, is a lot different. It's a whole different culture. So when, anytime Novi finishes in the top 4, it's a big deal. I mean, that's basically like winning the championship based on the difference in the amount of time that's spent. So great job, and congratulations to them. Wanted to let folks know also, if you haven't had a chance, the Cat's Eye News is on YouTube. Mr. Letarte and his class produce Cat's Eye News, I think twice a week. And it is available for anybody to see on YouTube. And the reason I brought that up also is because I did notice that in one of their recent episodes, we started getting a glimpse into this new video podcast room that's partially built, and maybe when we come back next time, you can give us some
Yeah.
detail, because I think it's your brainchild.
It's gonna be fun. Kids are gonna love it.
Looking forward to that. I mean, it's gonna be fantastic. I did attend a middle school basketball game yesterday, so middle school basketball is moving forward. I think the kids literally got back from the DC trip. I think they had one practice, and they were already starting to play. So that was pretty cool. And looking forward now, as we are transitioning into the winter season, we've got I think tryouts happened or is happening about this time for high school basketball. So we're looking really forward to beginning, doing what we normally do, all the broadcasts, plus starting to use all of the technology that we've invested in the gym. So looking forward to maybe a future report on that. And then lastly, the big event is tomorrow. Each year there are schools that are selected to host semifinal football games across the state. And because Novi has such a great facility and such a great reputation, the MHSA this year selected us to host one of the Division I football games. Normally we get Division IV, Division V, Division VI. This year we are hosting Detroit Cass Tech versus Belleville, and that's tomorrow. And what makes it more exciting is that the game will be live on WJR and on Fox Sports, well, what was formerly Fox Sports Detroit, and it will be Bally Sports Detroit now. So I know that the TV station was here earlier this week kind of doing a run through, and they had even promised me that they were going to share a video feed so we can do replays on the video board. So this is an opportunity for us to showcase all the great things that we do, that our athletic department does here at Novi. And I think once that's done, I think we're done. We're done with everything at the stadium, and then maybe we'll start doing some construction, correct?
It's ready to go.
So that's my report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mena. Mrs. Roney?
I went with Ben to the Oakland County School Board meeting, and it was fitting that, tonight we talked about the IT. We're gonna do shared with Oakland County, which we've always worked with the schools, but it was kind of fitting. We had a person talk about all those services, which we're, using. But the more important part is we had Amber, of course, and it was just phenomenal, the numbers, the statistics she put up about mental health, the adults that have mental health issues that are not treated, and the kids. And one of the numbers that really stuck with me was almost 20% of the children, school children, have thought at one time about suicide. So, that just breaks my heart. So, I know we're gonna do great things. When I get the little program they're supposed to send out to us, and it's got all kinds of QR codes and stuff. But also, I will send to the board, and this is just a snapshot of mental health services and such. And I thought it would be really good for DEI to look at, because it's an awesome tool, and she did wonderful, and I can't believe she came from Novi. So it's awesome.
She's
But
wonderful.
had a great time, great dinner, lots of, I don't know, fellowship or whatever with other superintendents. So it was a great time. So
Thank you for going.
Yeah.
we're having fun because they're moving them around.
So you get to see other districts.
We get to see other districts. We sat with West Bloomfield, and we talked to the superintendent quite a bit about, their new middle school or junior high, I don't know what they call it.
Middle school, yeah.
But it's phenomenal, and the security stuff that they have in it, it's great, so.
I had the opportunity to go to the sensory-friendly winter woodland, I think it is called. It's been called different things over the years. And just kudos to CPAC and to the special education department. It's really a wonderful event. We pulled up to the Roar Center, and I happened to be out with my husband and said, "Can you just swing me by the Roar Center? I'm just gonna run in. I don't need my wallet. I'm just gonna go in and see the kids and talk to the staff in here." And they did have stuff for sale, so I had to get the wallet, and I bought all kinds of things that our NATC students made. It's great. They're doing a lot of work, and they just get so proud about selling their objects and what they're making, and it's just something to be really proud of and just be a part of. So it was a great event. It's really special to see kiddos who can't go and have a normal experience in a mall or anywhere else, to see Santa, if that's what their culture is, and that's what they want to do, and to provide a space. So CPAC's doing great things here in the district. That was kind of followed from, they just had an amazing safety event that was, I think they had 100 participants, if not more, and that was a collaborative joint effort with our public safety team in the city. And so some really great things. They had to put a halt on some stuff over the pandemic, but they are back in action. And the best part about the whole event was, as I was walking out, one of the parents who's really put a lot of time and effort, Georgia, she's a parent in our district, this special needs student, and she's just over the top fantastic and puts her heart and soul into it. But the greatest part was that she's had some students who have gone several years to volunteer and to help, and she said next year that they're running the show. So they've been with her for a few years, and next year we can see some of our students take on the responsibility and continue to provide these services for other students within our district. So I thought that was fantastic, and it's great for parents to mentor students so that they could step in these roles and do great things for our kids and provide them a space that meets their needs and where they're at. So it was fun.
Can
Yes, please.
I hate to kind of end this on a downer, but kind of. Well, the woman who was my mentor when I first got on this board was Carol Elfring. She served on the board for 12 years, and prior to that, I think she was very active as a PTO president and mom, and she lost a battle on Monday, a very long battle. She lived far longer than anybody suspected that she would, and fought really hard, but she lost her battle, and I went to her visitation just before I came here tonight, so it was really hard because it just feels like kind of full circle, right? She is the person that approached me first and said, you know, I really think you would be a really good person to run for the school board, and I am not going to be running. And she served for 12 years, was president multiple times, and some staff may remember her, but it's been a long time ago, but she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. And yeah, big shoes to fill, and but, yeah, she'll be missed.
Thank you for honoring her. So that's not a downer, it's a great
Yeah.
thing to
Yeah.
carry on her
Celebration of
legacy.
life.
and-
The celebration of her life.
Yes.
She was amazing.
Thank you. Any other board communications? Okay. Seeing none, I think that we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Do we have support?
I support.
Recommended by Mr. Smith and supported by Mrs. Hood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0.